So can I request Dr. Ayan Mohanta to take it forward, please?
Yeah. Thank you very much. And I thank AIOC for giving me this opportunity to present my instruction course on strategies and political situations. So this will be a course which is going to cover a plethora of cataract cases which are not routine in nature. Sometimes these cases become a budding surgeon's nightmare. The principal objective of this video-based interactive course is to impart a thorough understanding of different and not so common cataract presentations in your day-to-day surgery practice. So the speaker sequence is somewhat like this: Dr. Mrinmoy Das, followed by Dr. Arup Bhomik, and then myself, followed by Dr. Shantanu Mitra and Dr. Debashish Datta. So they are all prolific surgeons from Disha Eye Hospitals, Barakpur. Over to you, Mrinmoy.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just trying to share my screen.
Yes, Dr. Mrinmoy, your screen is coming up.
Good afternoon, everyone. And first of all, I want to thank Dr. Ayan Mohanto. My slide is visible now.
Your folder is visible, not a slide. Can you open the slide, please?
Yes, I have opened the slide.
So, Dr. Mrinmoy, do one thing. Stop the sharing
Okay.
and go to share screen again. And now select that particular slide. Once you click on share screen, you'll see multiple windows. Share the particular slide.
Okay, just a minute. Share screen.
Yeah, now do you see a particular slide and open that? Select that and then click on share.
Particular slide.
Yeah, well, your PPT, which was open. Do you see
Yes,
that?
yes.
Yeah, select
PPT.
that and click on share at the bottom, right hand at bottom.
Yes. Okay.
Now we can see your PPT. Just make it full screen and start, please.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I want to thank Dr. Ayan Mohanto for including me in this instruction course. And my topic is cataract with small pupil. In our day-to-day practice, we all see this type of people in OT, and we have to deal with these cases, and it is very difficult to do phacoemulsification in these cases. So it's a technically challenging. Challenging in means every steps will be challenging. It means capsulorhexis, maybe it's phacoemulsification, irrigation aspiration, maybe it placing and aligning the IOL in the bag, especially in toric IOL cases. And there is always the chances of mechanical injury to the iris and iris bleeding. So what is a small pupil? How small is a small pupil? There is no consensus in the current literature. But in some studies, the diameter of the pupil to be considered small may start from 6 millimeter. So the causes, age means with increasing age, the iris becomes atrophied and miotic pupil happens. So in elderly people, you can get miotic pupil. Long-term use of pilocarpine is a cause of miotic pupil. Diabetic may be a cause. Pseudoexfoliation, in cases of pseudoexfoliation, we usually get miotic pupil due to iris dilator muscle atrophy and sphincter muscle fibrosis. Uveitis is a cause of small pupil. Angle closure attack, a previous history of angle closure attack can present with the miotic pupil. And nowadays, this is a newer indication that if the duration between the femtosecond laser application and the phacoemulsification is more than 20 to 30 minutes, there is always a chance of people become miotic. So to prevent this, we have to put multiple times the dilating drops in between. And in this type of cases, it is very difficult to dilate these people. Without a ring, it is very difficult to complete these cases. There is another is IFIS, means floppy iris syndrome, intraoperative floppy iris syndrome, which is also a variant of small pupil syndrome. And it is observed in patients who are currently using or previously treated with tamsulosin, which is a alpha-1 adrenoreceptor antagonist. It was first described by Dr. Chang et al. Here I want to show a video. You could see that the iris is coming out from the main port. Now it is coming out through the side port. And again, it is coming out from the main port. And even after irrigation aspiration, you could see that the iris is coming out through the side port. So this is the typical case of IFIS. So this is a basically challenges which we have to deal with. So whenever we are getting a small people, first what we will do after making a side port, we will go for intracameral non-present lignocaine, because we are all doing phacoemulsification in topical mode. So obviously we use lignocaine. So sometimes lignocaine may help to dilate the pupil to some extent, and then we use intracameral adrenaline sometimes to dilate the pupil. Nowadays, a combination of tropicamide, phenylephrine, and lidocaine is available commercially, which is used by some surgeons for rapid mydriasis and sustained intraocular anesthesia. So you may try also this. Like in this video, you could see that I'm using adrenaline and lignocaine combination, and you could see the pupil dilating, and it is dilating very good. It's a good side of pupil. When the these drugs will fail, then we can mechanically dilate the pupil to some extent with Heron GV or Heron 5, like high density viscoelastics. But the problem is capsulolysis will be easier. But when you are going with phacoprobe, most of the time this Heron or this high density viscoelastics will come out in toto. So the viscomydriasis will not help so much in phacoemulsification as such. When your when your adrenaline fails, when your visco fails, then you may stage the pupil, and it will create to some extent mid dilated pupil. And nowadays, when you are using this BX ring in some non-dilated or small people, it is a prerequisite that you always try to stretch people to some extent before applying this BX ring. A 23 gauge forceps is used to put the ring in place. Now, in some cases where there is synechiae, only synechial and along with viscoelastics may sometimes create a good amount of dilatation, and you can do your surgery as such. You could see now we can get a good size of pupil. Now coming this video, it will shows the application of Irish hook in a small or myotic pupil. 4 extra paracentesis opening should be made, and the paracentesis opening, the width should be narrow than usual or typical paracentesis, and the direction of the side port blade should be towards the center of the pupil. And you can see that these 4 hooks can create a good amount of dilatation, so that you can do your phacoemulsification or cataract surgery very easy. But the problem with this is the AC anterior becomes sometimes shallow. But with proper viscoelastics, copious viscosity, you can overcome this problem. And the removal is also very easy. You just release the stop, and then you can just take it out. And the most important thing is the cost of this device is very less. It's around 450 rupees. So anyone can use this. Now coming to BX ring, it's a basically 6.5 millimeter ring, which basically creates a 5.5 millimeter opening. And there are notches and flanges. So these flanges which carry those positional holes, that should be under the iris, and the notches should keep the iris to keep the pupil open, to keep the pupil dilated. So you are seeing that it's around 5.5 millimeter pupil, and you can carry out your phacoemulsification. The cost is around 1800 per piece, and it is disposable. You should use it only once. And this is very slim, so you can put it through the side port incisions also. And the removal of this device is also very easy. Just disengage the 4 points from the pupil and just take it out with your Kuglen hook, or you can take it out with your McPherson forceps. Now this is the basically Indian version of Malyugin ring, and I am quite happy with this ring. I am regularly using this ring. It basically it creates around around 5.5 to 6 millimeter of pupil, but it creates a rectangular pupil. and it came with a cartridge and a injector, and you just loading is very easy because the cartridge is basically the butterfly cartridge. So just use it and you can create, and you can see that the size of the pupil is quite good, and you can, and removal is also very easy. Just disengage the 4 points from the pupil and put some viscoelastics and hold it with the means Macpherson forceps at any point, and just take it out through the main port. The cost is less. It cost is around 1200 rupees, less than the BX ring. And now the Malugin ring, where I have always told that I have always preferred to use this ring, and I am very comfortable with this ring. This is a case of intraoperative meiosis, and I am trying to take out the means quadrant from the bag into the AC, but I could not carry out this. So I just put some viscoelastics below the iris and above the anterior capsule, and I trying to just uh, engage this Malugin ring, and you could see that pupillary size is quite good, and I can carry out phacoemulsification very easily. The main problem with this is the cost. It's around 8,500 in Indian rupees, single cost, and it is made of proline, polypropylene. And mostly you should use it once, so it will create a huge cost for the patient. And the removal is also easy. You just use it, just first disengage the 4 points, and then with the use of the injector, you just take it out from the anterior chamber as such. And the size of the pupil, there is hardly any injury to the pupillary margin. So the take-home message of my presentation is, in case of small pupil cataract surgery, the surgeon should be equipped with adrenaline, lidocaine or phenocaine plus high-density viscoelastics, to dialar Coughlin hook, iris hooks, and pupil expander rings. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Mrinmoy. That was a wonderful presentation. One quick question: how do you plan for your small pupils?
First, if you think it's preoperatively, we should use those tropicamide, phenylephrine, along with some NSAIDs like Nipafenab. But if you are seeing it on the table, first see that if there is any pupillary reaction or not. If there is any pupillary reaction, that means that with adrenaline or with lidocaine, it will dilate. And when if you're seeing that the pupil is not the pupillary reaction is not there, then also you have to first use the this lidocaine and adrenaline. And then if you are seeing that it fails and there is synechiae, go for synechiolalysis and use your iris hooks. But if there is no synechiae, and even with viscoelastics and your drugs, it is not dilating, I will always prefer to go for ring. Sometimes you can do your phacoemulsification in 4 to 5 millimeter of pupil, but you don't know whenever it will become more miotic. And after capsular excision, it is very difficult to put those rings and complete your phaco.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrinmoy. Our next speaker is Dr. Arup Bhomik. He will be speaking on rock hard and hypermature cataracts. Arup, it's all yours. Hello, Arup.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you, Dr. Mohanto, for including me in this IC. My topic is rock hard and hypermature cataract. Probably this is the toughest to deal, and for this presentation I have no financial interest. Rock hard cataract with hypermature cataract. This is the toughest to deal because you have all the difficulty of hypermaturity and the hard cataract. And bonus is you have most of the cases you have some kind of jonular problem and fibrosis of capsule. The fibrosis of capsule is such that it decreases the expansion of the capsule. So anytime you give a slightest force, it can give away, it can rupture the posterior capsule, it can go run away of the rhexis. And starting from the rhexis to nucleus removal to IOL implantation, every step is challenging. The capsular rhexis is challenging because of increased interlenticular pressure, and there is a fibrosis of anterior capsule. So you have to identify the problem and you have to deal with that. Let's just showing one video, small video clipping. This is a hypermature rock hard cataract. I thought it is almost normal hypermature cataract, rock hard cataract. Never understand the interlenticular pressure. When I'm going to do my rhexis, and I just wanted to deepen the anterior chamber, and you can see there is a runaway of the rhexis. So there is a, if there is any interlenticular pressure, you can see whether now the every hospital and clinic has some anterior segment OCT. So you can understand what is the difference between the Morgagni cataract and hypermature cataract inducement cataract. There is a small pocket of the liquid, so it increases the interlenticular pressure. Now see that this is a rock hard cataract, and you never know what is under these white milky cortex. So if you this is a you just nick the at standard technique is a nick the anticapsule, and you can see the how hard it is. So now your panic button is on, because it's a very difficult to deal this type of cataract. And so there is a basically in every hypermature cataract you have to strategize according to. No standard strategy will be standard strategy will be fruitful for every cases. Now this particular cases is a hypermature cataract, but the nucleus is not so mobile, so it can not so difficult in case do a chopping, and I'm doing the standard chopping, central debulking followed by the division. I always concentrate on the when the chopping part is a central debulking. So this type of cases where the nucleus is not mobile, probably this is slightly advantageous for the surgeon, that you can do a Klein-Bos chopping, but you have to do a chopping technique, because the stop and chop technique or 4-quadrant technique will not be effective in this case, because the most of the cases our nucleus is little bit of mobile, and with the mobile nucleus you cannot do a stop and chop or 4-quadrant technique. You have to do a chopping technique, and this is most suitable is a vertical chopping. Now this is another case. This is a hypermature cataract. I never know how much sclerotic it is, and you can see here the nucleus is much more mobile. So it is sometimes very difficult to chop this case. So my strategy now during the first 2 chop, I increase my flow rate. Why I increase my flow rate in these cases? You can see the mobility. Increase my flow rate, basically increase flow rate, and as it is a mobile nucleus, it is always stuck to my tip, and it is better to manipulate. So at the as I said, from beginning to end, everything is problematic, because it is very hard cataract. You can see the last quadrant, there is a small PC rate. So very careful in this type of cases. Whenever you feel this, there may be some fluctuation of AC, you can remove your phaco probe, or you can put viscoelastic of the side port to protect the posterior capsule. Here I am doing the posterior capsular rhexis before I implanting IOL in the back. Now another case, you can see this is a hypermature cataract, Morgagni cataract with the sufficient amount of capsular fibrosis in the anterior capsule. So it is very difficult to do a proper capsular axis if it is starting from here to equator. So luckily, this case after the fibrosis was limited in the first in center few area. So after that, there is no fibrosis. You can see there is a lot of mobility of the nucleus. I can understand the mobility, and as I said, I increase my aspiration rate nowadays and try to do a chopping. At least I want to divide into the two half, so that I can, after that, I can do at least supracapsular phaco if the cornea is healthy, or with the help of viscoelastic. So this is my technique. I do the at least bisect the nucleus, and I try to do phaco. I just fast forwarding a little bit. So whenever you see some kind of fibrosis in the anterior capsule, in the hypermature cataract, you should be prepared that fibrosis can be present in all along. It can be present in the equator of the back. It can be present in the posterior capsule. So anytime it may give a with minimum pressure or separation pressure. So you have to be very careful. You can see this is there is a rupture of the equator of the capsular bag, rupture of the equator of the large rent because of this slightest you can see there's a rupture of the equator of the capsular bag, because slightest separation force give you the equator. So it's now the technique is to do a standard procedure. You do the optic capture, IOL scaffold technique. You put the IOL into the sulcus and emulsify the rest of the nucleus. When the nucleus is very small and there is a liquefied technique, Dr. Devashish Datta shows us a beautiful technique to IOL scaffold. He just implanted the IOL at the very beginning to protect the posterior capsule. This is a standard IOL supra capsular phaco, anterior chamber phaco after scaffolding. So you can see this another case is gross fibrotic case in the anterior capsule. So I'm just fast forwarding this case. You can see this is the mobility of the nucleus, and somehow as there's a capsular fibrosis, it goes to the periphery, to the periphery. So you have to cut the. So whether you should go for the phaco in this case, I always, that was my temptation, but this is not advisable to do the phaco. Very difficult fibrosis, and ultimately, just fast forward. You can see there's and nucleus is very unstable. So I understand it is not be very safe, and keep aside my ego. I convert it to the SICS. So this is another case, the hypermature with sclerotic cataract, and I thought this is a very hard in the center. And there is a fibrosis in the capsule. This is a ominous signs. Fibrosis of the capsule is a ominous signs. Any kind of cataract surgery, especially in hypermature cataract. So once I did, as the nucleus is small, I wanted to do a division with the snare. That is and it is very easy. The nucleus is small, but it is sclerotic, so it is easy to divide into the halves, at least two halves. I divided the nucleus into the two halves, and after that I try to do a phaco, and after some time I understand this is there is quite a lot fluctuation of and there is a fibrosis. There may be some problem during the surgery, so I decided to the optic capture. After that, I do implant the IOL and do the supralenticular phacoemulsification. This is standard IOL scaffold technique. So this is the problem. Probably this not be a very bad technique. If you think it is a kind of cataract, your machine is not good, your skill is not so far, and you can expecting some kind of problem, you just pull up the nucleus and do SICS, either standard SICS, or you can divide the nucleus into two half and remove these. So conclusion, you have to understand in your machine, it is impossible to do surgery with the basic machine, this type of hard sclerotic cataract with hypermaturity. You have to understand your skill, and always you keep your ego aside. Primary goal is complicated surgery. Any uncomplicated surgery better than any kind of complicated surgery. If you do a complicated flap surgery, it is worse than a uncomplicated SICS surgery. And it's a, you have to remember the planned SICS and ECC is always give better result than unplanned SICS and ECC. Thank you so much for your kind ear.
Thank you, Arup, and nice presentation, excellent videos as usual. I would ask Debashish to ask a few questions. Debashish, are you there?
Yes, yes. These were marvelous videos where our heart will almost stop. Not many of us will dare to proceed like he did. I would just ask you that in case of the posterior capsule is intact, where you did all those IOL scaffold techniques where the multi-piece IOL is placed in the sulcus. So if you have small fragments, can you use a visco tamponade like Hilon GV in the posterior over the rent and do that supracapsular echo? Is it possible?
Yeah, it is possible. It is possible with a good machine, good fluidics. It is possible. Is the rent is very
Rent is
small, very small. It is possible. Even people show it is possible. They see that the IOL scaffold not a very old technique. It is just 8 years technique. The previously doctors are either converting or do the continue phaco with the help of Viscode. And Dr. Vasavada also presented so many cases of how to manage a PCR. He saw how to plug the small rent and do the phaco. So it is possible. And it is dependent, but definitely scaffold is a much safer technique, if you think. And if you have planned to put some kind of single piece lens, either you plan to do a small lens, you can plan that the patient is opted for the panoptics or any multifocal IOL. So you should try at the end of the surgery. So you with a small lens, you plug the posterior rent to complete the phaco, do the vitrectomy, and implant the single piece lens in the back. It is possible. But in a large rent, in a hard cataract, better do the scaffold.
So in that particular case, you showed that there was an anterior capsular injury with extension to the periphery and to the posterior capsule with a large rent. Will you do scaffold in this case?
The whole nucleus, yes, possible. You put the lens in the sulcus and cut the nucleus fragment with the snare into species, and you can continue phaco.
Is there any possibility of that particular scaffold inside the vitreous cavity?
Possible. From the side, it can possible. Extension, if the extension of rex is limited to the equator, it is okay. Once it is go to the posterior, then everything can happen, and even IOL can drop into the vitreous.
Any other questions, Dr. Mitra?
No, thank you.
Sir, can I ask a question?
Yes, sure.
If the anterior capsule is good, and after the fluid is coming out, we can put a CTA to stabilize the bag and can do the phaco in these cases.
Definitely. And there's any bag, unstable bag, you can put CTR is become horizontally stable. So it is not vertically stable, but it is horizontally stable. It gives some kind of stability into the anterior chamber. You can do phaco, but definitely I'll feel if the patient your rhexis is good, and your rhexis, you can put CTR and implant whatever lens you want. You can put that time single piece also. before exercise. Then you can proceed further with hair, with definitely you do care with the proper care to the endothelium. But these are the extraordinary scenario. It's a really difficult scenario. You never know which patient or which surgery will behave in which way.
And can you just tell what kind of viscoelastics you would like to use other than the visco below the endothelium, and any other?
I really prefer HPMC. No problem. Yeah, you can use Zilonjivi. HPMC also better. I think we should finish our IC first, then we can discuss.
Okay, Dr. Arup, because we have a dedicated time slot at 15 minutes at the end, we can discuss
Yeah.
that time. Let's
Yes,
go
yes.
for this next speaker.
So is my screen visible?
Yes, sir. It's visible.
So I'll be talking on cataracts with extreme axial lengths. The scope of the topic, I'll cover up the high myopia cases with an axial length greater than 26 millimeter and non-ophthalmos, a rare condition characterized by a small globe with a short axial length. So these are the issues which are to be taken into consideration before going to operate a myopic case. The choice of lens, anesthesia, capsulorhexis, centration, and dealing with LIDRS. So biometry over the years of around 15, 20 years experience, and with the newer machines and newer formulas, what we have found is Barrett, Universal 2, and Olsen provide a consistently accurate result in axial lengths of above 21 millimeter up to 28 millimeter. If you see this graph, you'll be able to see that the Barrett and the Olsen, these are mostly near emmetropic in all the instances, other compared to the other formulas. And the biometry becomes exceptionally challenging if you have a staphyloma like this. In the USG, you can see there is a staphyloma. So in these particular cases, the chances of generation of error is huge, especially if you are not able to do an optical biometry. And ultrasonic biometry will definitely give an overestimation of the axial length. The choice of IOL myopics usually have a very good near vision. So when they remove their glasses, so your target distance reflection should be around -1 to 1.5, because they'll be extremely unhappy if they're more towards the plus side. So you have to keep a margin of safety around 1 to 1.5 diopters of myopia. And the choice of IOL should be in your hands. Whichever IOL has the least incidence of PCO, go for that, because the subsequent YAG cap might lead to a lot of complications like retinal detachment, etc. And it's better to avoid a trifocal in axial lengths more than 30 millimeter. Topical anesthesia is definitely preferable due to the chances of globe perforation. We have seen devastating results with myopes with penetrated, in which the needle has penetrated the globes, especially the staphylomas. The capsulorhexis must be of adequate size. It should have a very good overlap, because otherwise the lens will pop out of the bag and will lead to more myopic shift. And it should be perfectly centered. Flax is helpful in some cases. LIDRS is lens iris diaphragm retropulsion syndrome, is a big problem while you operate on the myopic eyes. And this is how LIDRS happens. So when you go in with your phaco probe with a full bottle height, see, the pupil gets hugely dilated. So in this particular instance, either you need 2 parameters, or you have to go with a second hand instrument, a blunt one, go to the pupillary margin and break this adhesion. So then after that, the pupil remains moderately dilated. So whenever you take your phaco stick, because if you suddenly withdraw your phaco probe in a myopic eye, it will lead to a sudden gush of aqueous, and it might lead to PVD. So here you can see that the cortical aspiration is going on. And now I'm putting the IOL in the bag. And you must notice at this point of time that I have disengaged my left hand irrigating instrument and keeping always the antechamber pressure at a constant level. You never allow that to fluctuate, because in myopia, if you allow the chamber to fluctuate, it will cause devastating results. So the lens goes in. And you always have to remember that you are operating a myopic case every time. Otherwise, the tendency of bringing out the instrument becomes a normal habit. I also show it in the next case. So after the cortical aspiration and the visco wash and the lens placement was done, see, I am hydrating the wound, keeping the irrigation in place so that the chamber is always maintained. So as soon as I take out the left-hand instrument, I hydrate that area. I never elapse. So this is one of the key things you have to remember while operating a myopic case. So here you can see again the IOP, if you notice 30. So in this particular case, you see I'm entering the antechamber with very little fluctuation of the iris pupil diameter. See, it's a very little fluctuation. So these are the benefits of active fluidics, wherein you can control the amount of fluid that is going inside the eye. And in a gravity-based system, your bottle height should not exceed 60 to 70 millimeter from the ground. So here you can see again, if you notice, I'm taking out my phacoprobe suddenly and see, and there is a PV that has been induced. So the chamber maintenance thing is absolutely important. Now coming to high hyperopia and nanophthalmos, biometry again is a problem, and we have to go for the Holliday 2 Haigis or Hoffer Q, which incorporates additional white-to-white data measurement and refraction, and also the anterior chamber depth to produce more accurate results. And cataract surgery is challenging in these eyes because of small, which increases the risk of damaging the intraocular tissues. Uveal effusion may occur more easily because of the inherent scleral properties. To avoid these complications, you have to maintain a stable anterior chamber intraoperatively. Preoperatively, you must administer mannitol to reduce the vitreous pressure prophylactically. Capsulorhexis in hyperopic eyes is prone to tear towards the periphery because of the dome-shaped configuration of the anterior capsule. Refill the anterior chamber with OVD as necessary. IOL choice is sometimes very limited. There is only one IOL that is commercially available up to +40. Rest other IOLs, you have to go for a custom-made IOL, or you have to go for a piggybacking if there is anterior chamber space. So this is a case of high hypermetropia which I am operating. You can see the capsule is already a slight bulge you can notice in the capsule. So it is very important to make a smaller size capsulorhexis, because if you want to make a bigger size capsulorhexis at one go, it might extend to the periphery and it may not be controllable. So it's better to go for a smaller rhexis. Hydro procedure. This was a case of refractive lens exchange. The IOL power was +40. On the higher side, the IOP is at 60. Cortical aspiration is carried out. And followed by the implantation of the lens. And these lenses are usually very thick, so you have to be very careful while injecting. It might stretch the wound, and you have to put a suture if required. And always you have to maintain the anterior chamber. See, the capsular size is a bit smaller, so I decided to go ahead, put some more viscoelastic and go for a bigger size rhexis. And even if you leave it at that particular stage, there is no problem. And over here, if you can see I usually set my parameters to different modes and name them code name them like this. AMBT pi is one such code name. Grade of parameters. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, Oil. So I think there is a scarcity of time. You just avoid the another important nanophthalmic,
Yeah, because
microphthalmic.
I didn't-
Yeah, yes, colobomas are very important.
Yeah.
Yes, but it's a excellent presentation. It's nicely covered. Next speaker, who is the next speaker? I think
Dr. Shantanu
Shantanu.
Mishra is the next speaker.
Topic was also very good, extreme eyes. This
Hmm.
topic in itself is beautiful.
is
And can you unshare your screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Already unshared.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I thank Dr. Anwanto for including me in this forum. My talk will be posterior polar cataract. The nightmare is challenge to almost all the phaco surgeons. I have no financial interest to disclose. So these are the background of the posterior polar cataract. You all know posterior polar cataract is a round discoid opaque mass that is composed of malformed and distorted lens fibers located in the central posterior part of the lens. And there is a high incidence of bilateral presentation. There is sporadic or familial, and the pathogenesis is caused by persistence of the hyaloid artery, invasion of the lens by mesoblastic tissue, and forms during embryonic life, but it may be symptomatic quite late in the lifespan. But the surgical importance of PPC is challenging because there is a very high incidence of intraoperative PC rupture. So the surgeon has to be always alert and conversant with all the mechanisms to manage such kind of thing. There is actually the posterior capsule is weak, or there may be a pre-existing defect in the posterior capsule as well. So there is a diagnostic dilemma whether it's a true PPC or a posterior subcapsular cataract with a central plaque. So we have to do a thorough slit lamp examination to arrive at a proper diagnosis before the surgery. The PPC is a bilateral thing with satellite lesions and the posterior margin of discoid lesion at the level of the posterior capsule. So in this pictures, probably this one is true posterior polar cataract with satellite lesions. The other may be true PPC or posterior subcapsular cataract with central plaque. And these are PPC with some higher grade of nuclear sclerosis. So regarding this diagnostic dilemma, sometimes there is a tendency to overdiagnose the PPC, but it is to be on the safer side. No harm there. You should be alert. And you look for the other eye. If there is a previous history of surgery, you can look for any complication that had been encountered during that surgery. Anterior segment OCT is a new armamentarium in the diagnosis. It can diagnose PPC most of the times, but it cannot definitely say whether there is a pre-existing posterior capsular defect or not. And you have to do a thorough counseling with the patient with everything explained regarding the increased time of surgery, increased risk of the nucleus drop and intervention of VR surgery, and capsulotomy later on. And in case of unilateral cases, there is always a chance of risk of amblyopia, and visual acuity may not be as desired by the patient. So this thing has to be counseled out before you start your surgery. And these are the clinical classifications. One is by Daljit Singh, where there is this onion peel or bullseye appearance. This is combined with the PSC and PPC combined. He classified according to that. And the Schroeder classification is mostly in the pediatric group with the visibility of the red reflex through a dilated pupil. So with this background, we approach the case of a PPC, where these are the steps we go through. Your capsular axis should be around 5 millimeter. because most of these cataracts are soft cataracts. So if there a PCR happens, you should have a chance of the scope of having an optic capture. Or in case of higher nucleus sclerotic cases, you can do a slight capsularisis where you want to prolapse the nucleus out of the bag into the anterior chamber if a PCR happens. But the most important steps are the hydro procedures, the nucleus management, and the maintenance of the anterior chamber. In hydro procedures, hydro dissection is relatively contraindicated. Nowadays, a very controlled hydro dissection is done with very small amount of fluid through the periphery, but never reaching the central part of the posterior capsule. But hydrodelamination is a more scientific procedure here. You go into the nucleus and delineate out the endonucleus from the epinucleus. So that will be more safer thing. And nucleus management, you manage the endonucleus first, then there will be a cushion of the epinucleus while you are managing the endonucleus. So in that case, there will be less amount of trauma to the posterior capsule, weak posterior capsule. And always maintain the anterior chamber, never allow it to inflate or deflate suddenly. So in this regard, there are two modifications or innovations made by Dr. Arup Bhowmik. One is the cannula, which we termed as PPC cannula, and the visco pump, which release visco into the anterior chamber through a foot control motorized pump system. So here we can see in this video that in normal hydrodissection, the fluid coming from the tip of the cannula may go to the posterior subcapsular area. Here you do not realize that what had happened to the posterior capsule. You start with your phacoemulsification, and after doing a certain amount of phacoemulsification, you realize that the posterior capsule rupture has already occurred. This is because the fluid has inadvertently gone to the posterior subcapsular area and caused a damage to the weak posterior capsule. So this is a modified cannula where the tip is at the side instead of the front, and the fluid is coming out through that side tip. So you embed this tip into the nucleus, and the fluid will always grow to the will cause a division between the endonucleus and the epinucleus, never reaching the posterior subcapsular area. So this is the hydrodelamination with the modified cannula. The fluid is always going to the between the endonucleus and epinucleus. So see, in this surgical case, there is the golden ring appearing, separating the endonucleus from the epinucleus. So there is less risk of damage to the weak posterior capsule. You can do multiple layers of separation. And here again, from the tip, the fluid can go to the posterior subcapsular area. Sometimes you can mechanically try to score the endonucleus out of the epinucleus before starting the phacoemulsification. Once again, you go into the nucleus. Here also, Dr. Vasavada has proposed a technique of inside-out hydrodelamination, where he makes a central trench, and through the walls of the trench, he hydrodelaminate the endonucleus. So once this endonucleus is separated, you can emulsify the endonucleus, then we'll deal about the epinucleus. Once again, you can do this thing repeatedly, and there will be similar concentric rings of golden rings separation of the different layers of endonucleus. Mostly these cataracts are soft cataracts. Here again, the endonucleus has been separated. And now you start phacoemulsification. Keep all your parameters low, and you can complete the case successfully. Now, about the epinucleus removal after the endonucleus has been removed, again, there is a thick shell of epinucleus remaining, which has cushioned the posterior capsule during your endonucleus removal. But again, here the fluid can inadvertently or wrongly goes into this posterior subcapsular space and can cause to the damage to your posterior capsule, weak posterior capsule. So here the idea will be to remove a wedge of the epinucleus from the periphery, and so that there will be no pressure gradient gap between this posterior subcapsular area and the area in front of the epinucleus. So this idea was to from the very beginning to a perfect CCC. And do a hydrodelamination, the endonucleus has been separated. So you remove the endonucleus by phacoemulsifying with very low parameters. And go slow, take your time. And now you have to remove that wedge that we are talking about from the periphery. Your left hand instrument will help you to score that area out. So you have to manipulate that wedge and take it out from this epinuclear cell. See, that wedge has come out. So there is that gap has been created. If after this has been created, you can also do a visco expression of this epinucleus out of this bag. And always remember, when you will be removing the phaco tip from the chamber or your any other instrument from the chamber, you always inflate the chamber with visco from your left hand side port. Never keep the fluctuation there in the anterior chamber, while C is replaced with a visco. Put visco in the anterior chamber, then remove your instrument. So that is irrigation aspiration should be preferably with a bimanual. That will give you more control. And from the periphery towards the center, clear the central thick plaque area last. And again, while removing the instrument, before removing the irrigation, you put visco inside. And then you complete the case successfully. So if there is a PCR happens, if it is a small PCR with no vitreous disturbance, you can try for a posterior capsular axis around that PCR, do a dry cortical cleanup, and you can go ahead with the in the bag IOL placement. But if it's a larger PCR with vitreous disturbance, you have to do a vitrectomy, either anterolimbal or pars plana. Then you choose for a sulcus-fit SE IOL, or sometimes you can postpone the case for a secondary SF or SE IOL. And if there is a nucleus drop, then of course you have to send it to BR surgeon to manage. So tricks in a successful PPC management, in my opinion, that the surgeon should always be alert. Even at the end of surgery, while you are hydrating your corneal wound, you should not put enough pressure. You should not inflate the anterior chamber very highly. It can also cause to a rupture of the weak capsule. And the rest of the thing is that you should be very patient, very patient. You take your time, keep your phaco parameters low, keep your machine at a very low profile, and always maintain the anterior chamber. Never allow it to inflate or deflate suddenly. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Dr. Mohanto, once again. Over to you.
Dr. Mitra, it is an excellent presentation. A nice overview of management of PPC.
I have taken your surgeries to show them that's the best possible thing, in my opinion.
Excellent videos, excellent presentation, Dr. Mitra. I think we'll take up the discussions later on. Let's
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Yes. Just a sec. Thank you, AIOS and Dr. Mohanto, for including me in your instruction course. I'll be just discussing some subluxated cataracts with you people and all the audience. So here we go, no financial interest. There are a few pearls which I would like to stress on. In the beginning, that when you enter the anterior chamber in case of a subluxated cataract, you must use the trypan blue first and see if there is any vitreous in the AC, because inadvertently some vitreous is in many cases it is there, and don't use the trypan blue to stain the anterior capsule at the first go. Use a cohesive viscoelastic plug to stop the vitreous or the zonular gap, and then use the trypan blue. And also, placement of CTR is a necessary in most of the subluxated cases. So control the placement of the CTR, and I would like to control the CTR placement by a carousel technique, which I am going to show. So here, first I put in translucent acetonide to make sure there is no vitreous in the AC. Then I wash off the anterior chamber of the translucent and put in, what do I put in? Trypan blue. Am I correct? We will go and see it later. So under the cover of high molecular weight viscoelastic, to prevent an Argentinian fleck sign, I do a smaller type of a rhexis here. Support the subluxated lens with MST capsular hooks. Do a corticocapsular cleaving, and I put a CTR because the bag is moving. I control the movement of the leading eyelet of the CTR and do not allow it to hit the equator of the lens directly. So I'm holding it with a Sinskey hook and I allowed it to go below here it goes now. And now I release the trailing eyelet below the rhexis margin. So you can, CTR injector allows you to have exercise much more better control. So here the nucleus is not very hard. I go in for a controlled phacoemulsification, and now see the trypan blue has stained my vitreous. So you should always plug the gap before putting in trypan blue. This is not a good thing because the visibility is compromised. And I always try to prefer a multi-piece lens. And how do you dial the multi-piece lens? Not by the single optic junction. I would prefer to do it by manually. This will exert lesser stress on the already weak zonules. And now finally, I check it with translucent acetonide again at the end of the surgery. Is it okay? Is it? Oh, I don't think. There is a vitreous tag here and it has been stained up. So I want to quench the source of this vitreous. You may not do a parcella vitrectomy here, but I thought it's better because it is coming from there. The tag will be there. So there might be some traction. So I remove that traction of the vitreous by doing a pars plana vitrectomy, which is not very difficult, and also do a limbal vitrectomy to remove the vitreous from the anterior chamber. This, I think, would allay any chance of vitreous traction. And finally, put pilocarpine and make sure that there is no vitreous in the anterior chamber. Now you see there's about 180 degree of subluxation. I make a scleral flap here beside parallel to the area of subluxation because I plan to place a fixation device here because it has to be placed. At a comfortable position, you do a clear corneal phacoemulsification. First, I try check anterior chamber, as I told you, with triamcinolone acetonide. No, there's nothing here, but still I fill the anterior chamber with cohesive viscoelastic and also plug the area off and prevent any further vitreous prolapse. A careful rhexis is being done. After a careful rhexis, I support it by MST capsular hooks. You may be 2, 3, you can even 4 or 5, I may put as many as you like. And here also I am supporting the leading eyelet of the CTR and supporting it and preventing it from hitting the capsular equator directly. So, and CTR injector will always give you a better control, and you can inject slowly, have control over the situation, and then at one point of time, you allow the leading haptic to go. Leading eyelet to go. Here I release the capsular hooks and put iris hooks and put a Prolene suture through the ciliary sulcus through the bed of the scleral bed which I prepared. My intention is go through the ciliary sulcus, but this is a blind procedure. You cannot see visualize the ciliary sulcus unless you have an endoscope. So there's a little amount of bleeding. I must have injured some ciliary processes, which is inevitable in some case. Now I thread the eyelet of the Ahmed segment and it is put back. Now a 26 gauge bent needle is being negotiated through the bed, and the needle is docked in the lumen of the needle, and it is taken out through the bed. Now the Ahmed segment CTR, is being negotiated slowly into the capsular bag, and after you place it at the equator, you titrate the position. Now you draw the sutures out from the bed of the scleral flap and place it in proper position, and you can have the knot on the sclera behind the scleral flap, so the knot is not exposed. Here I prefer to put the IOL in the sulcus, multi-piece IOL in the sulcus, because I'm not very confident of myself, because I might damage the bag. So I cover it up with conjunctiva and check the anterior segment finally which is free of any vitreous. Now again, here you see there's a subluxation here, and so there's a high suspicion, and yes, there's so much of vitreous has come into the anterior chamber. If we had put in triamcinolone acetonide first, we would have been here. I have been marked the shaft of the vitrectomy cutter, 23 gauge vitrectomy, here the mark, because I want to go from here to here blindly. So I will introduce the cutter here, pars plana vitrectomy cutter, which is through the trocar, and I will go right up till here with the cutting port facing the optic disc. So I have gone up till here. I'll stop here. I won't go any further. With the irrigation in the anterior chamber, with the cutting on, you see that the vitreous, which has prolapsed in the anterior chamber, will go back through the gap in the zonules. You can see the cutter there. And now you can plug and stain the anterior capsule. Here's a small video showing the carousal technique.
Good evening. This is Debashis Dato from Isha Eye Hospitals, Kolkata. This is how I used to place CTRs. Maybe place it on the conjunctival sac outside the eye, and then negotiate it from all possible ports. Here I hit the posterior capsule, and the CTR is somewhat dangling. But somehow I escaped without rupturing the posterior capsule. I did not find it suitable, so now I go in through the chopper port and I try to place the CTR in the bag. What will happen to the trailing eyelet? It has become somewhat vertical. I place it inside the eye and it goes over the iris. There it goes. Now I use a Sinskey hook to negotiate it below the capsular margin. Here I try to place the CTR in the subluxation bag.
Wrongly direction.
It rips the zonules even more. No, it cannot be done this way. And this is not what is wanted. Ultimately, the bag is removed. Now I become smart. I use CTR injectors. Even then, as I proceed to place the CTR in the capsular bag, I'm very much apprehensive whether it will keep the capsular bag intact. Perhaps not. So I withdraw it into the barrel of the injector, place a ball dialer, fix it, we fix the leading eyelet in the ball and allow it to carousel on the ball as a pivot. So the CTR carousels against the pivot of the ball and places itself at the equator of the lens. Now I release the trailing applique. Here I use a Sinskey hook, hold it, and in the case of a traumatic cataract with dialysis, and now I let go, and there you see the CTR gradually unfurling inside the bag. This is a vitrectomized eye. The anterior chamber is filled up with Phelon-GV, and I try to place on the CTR the conventional way in the clockwise direction, but I could not. The bag is very precariously poised. I try it the other way. I proceed very slowly, but still it is not a diligent placement, and the bag will rip off any moment. So, not sure of the logistics, I withdraw the CTR back to its cradle. And now I try it in a different way. I use the ILM peeling forceps of retina. It has got a tooth at its tip. So I hold the leading eyelet by the tooth of the ILM forceps and allow it to carousel against this pivot. And I think this exerts the minimum pressure on the capsular bag, which is already precariously poised. So CTR injectors are a good choice.
Thank you. I just exceeded the time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Devashi. That was a wonderful deliberation.
We have enough time to discuss.
Yes.
I think we have 15 minutes more.
We have 20 more minutes.
Devashish, it's a wonderful technique. Actually, previously all the surgeon used to suture the leading
Yes.
eyelid.
Eyelets
Yeah,
with the
yeah. You saw the technique. Yes, in my experience, I have at least 3-4 times I ruptured the capsule with intending the implanting CTR in the bag in the grossly compromised because of the fold is happened in the equator. Whenever it catch the fold, and it just try to give the pressure, there's a rupture. It's a wonderful technique, and it is an ideal technique to be frank. And I have a question: what kind of this is a CTR injector? Is it a Katina variety or it's a Indian variety?
all,
What type of yes
these are all
CTR?
Katina, and these are things which I got abroad, though these are meant for single use. I had been using it for, I do ETO and use it multiple times.
No, that yes, I saw this
These are all
plastic
yes,
tip.
these are all
Yeah.
plastic ones. One is Katina
Ah.
and another is I have to see the thing.
Oh,
2 or 3 types.
it's a
which
good
I
because a Katina injector is really good. But yes,
Yes, this is the picture which Dr. Orange had shown us. If it is I mean, if the dialysis is in a single area, then
Yeah.
this theory that you first have the leading aptic in that weak area so that it does not
Yes, yes.
traumatize the other intact zonules is fine. But if all the zonules are too weak, the entire bag
Then,
is
yes.
vacillating, then it becomes very difficult.
very difficult.
Yes.
And it should be the ideal technique. This should be either you make a knot in the leading haptic, or you hold the forceps,
same
or
thing,
your
basically,
technique
yeah.
you showed that it's a standard Kuglen hook you used,
It is not a
or you
Kuglen-
made something different.
No. I told you, it is the retina ILM peeling forceps. 25
Oh,
page.
no, that's a forceps, and you the hook you are using.
Hook is the
Kuglen,
ordinary
Kuglen.
Kuglen
hook.
hook, yeah. Okay.
I have a question to the other panelists that in my topic, this PPC, if the nuclear sclerosis is such that you are apprehending a PPC, presence of a PPC, but you cannot do a hydrodelamination in softer cataracts like softer cataracts, what is your procedure of choice? Dr. Bhumi?
So if you have a hard cataract, there is no need to separate nucleus nucleus from the rest of the epinucleus. If you just try to scalp it, automatically it separate from the epinucleus. The problem is what kind of chopping you will use.
Yes.
If any kind of chopping, there is a slightest of separation force, there may be a PC rupture.
Okay.
So it is always better to scalp the nucleus as much as possible, and with the second hand instrument if it possible. In that case, I will prefer to do a larger rexis rather
Yes.
than a 5.5
Yeah.
if it any possible. And first of all, you just make a small wedge. If you remove the small wedge from the
Yes.
nucleus, then it is
Lot of space.
you win the match. If you're not able to remove a small wedge, then you will
That
still
will create a
struggling.
space.
So
Yeah.
one pie, if you can remove one pie,
Yeah,
then you
then-
try to
then
prolapse
we-
it in the
Yes, pull-ups, and that will create a cleavage. You can
Also
remove.
that will create a space. You will be able to
Yeah.
give more lateral separation force.
Yes.
That your
Preparation, you can
margin will
you
be
can
there.
you can introduce your blunt chopper under the capsular rexis and separate the
Manually
nucleus rest
separate
of the manually, but you have to remove some amount of wedge. It is
Okay.
better.
Okay.
So scalp as much as possible, But yes, this is a very difficult kind of
Situation.
cataract.
Another
I have a-
situations which we
Sometimes
take-
even in mature cataracts there is a
Yeah.
PC, and go for the phaco, the whole thing drops.
Yes,
This happened to me once.
yes. As soon as you put the phaco tip in, the whole
Yeah,
thing.
yes, nothing to do.
Yeah.
Nothing to that cases. Not possible.
There is some anterior segment OCT has come up, and which there is some classification.
Yes, yes.
Whereby there's grade 1, 2, 3 is there. Whether the PPC is a part of the posterior capsule or it has gone little beyond that into the patellar fossa, something like that. I've not forgotten. the
Yes, that is a
classification.
classification. Basically, this is that OCT is used in the femto machine that can delineate that now this is a high resolution OCT that can understand the any defect or irregularity in the posterior capsule, and they classify accordingly. But yes,
I have
that-
not been able to clinically put that classification into use because it remains as unpredictable.
Yes, always. Yes.
Yes. You consider every case as a PPC and proceed accordingly.
And on the, as you said, that the nanophthalmic eye, can you give some tips to us regarding nanophthalmic eyes? Because a few days back, we had an expulsive and we lost the eye.
Very
So
unpredictable.
what should be
Very unpredictable.
What should be the
So you have to be
safest
very,
way,
very
like
careful.
How much of mannitol, and should we give how much of peribulbar and block and this pinky, and what and suprachoroidal drainage if possible? Should we keep the retina person at bay? Sometimes these people are
Whatever you are saying, you have to do all of them. Even then, the case is unpredictable. Anything can happen. That is the main
Very
problem.
difficult. First
Very
of all,
difficult to
Could you
predict.
do a partial
Whether-
vitrectomy? Suppose you have a huge nucleus.
now, whether your the peribulbar injection will not help.
Okay.
So you go topical, and you can apply little bit of pinky over there without giving in peribulbar. It is possible you just put a pinky,
Okay.
just light pinky, and put mannitol and try to and your incision should be absolutely snugly fit, all instrument in the entry chamber, and you should maintain the high pressure gradient and never allow your AC to plug. Even then, as on said, the rexis is difficult. Everything, even everything is okay, perfect. There is a choroidal effusion.
Now, sometimes this happens, particularly after this long COVID gap, some patients will turn up with huge cataracts. You know what kind of cataracts these days we are getting. So in case of an anophthalmic eye, maybe it is difficult to do a phaco. It is so hard, so small. You can't do a rexis. Any idea, sir? Should we do a pars plana vitrectomy? We cannot know where the pars plana is.
If your plots, you don't know the pars plana in these cases, and if you where you're giving dry vitrectomy, you'll always initiate the cascade of choroidal effusion. You do the dry vitrectomy, you know? So it is not recommended in if you want to do vitrectomy, you have to give another port for irrigation. You can't do a dry vitrectomy for nanophthalmic. Any comment, Ayan? He said even dry vitrectomy can initiate the process of choroidal effusion.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, yes. You are doing anything. You create a negative pressure in the vitreous cavity with the dry vitrectomy.
It was
You have to
Some
keep
sort of effusion in the anterior chamber or through a pars plana.
Yes. Which type of pardon?
Vitrectomy.
So you talking about the vitrectomy before doing rexis or in between surgery? Devashish?
Whatever. There is a
So
tight eye.
whenever you do the vitrectomy, you have to put irrigation.
Okay.
You cannot
Is it mandatory
do-
that I have to put irrigation in the
So
pars plana, or
basically,
I can-
then it becomes
No.
as good as not maintaining the tonicity of the eye. If you're not putting the irrigation in.
Okay.
Yeah, you can put irrigation in the anterior chamber. Basically, you are not equalize the pressure. So it can temporarily you can put some kind
but
of
we cannot allow
But
the-
whenever you remove the any instrument out of the eye without giving the proper tamponade the eye, that cascade can start.
Sir, one question from me. If it is a microphthalmos, means 7.5 millimeter cornea, 8 millimeter cornea with small pupil, so which ring will be the best, or iris hook will be the best?
Which ring?
Ring, but the small eye,
Small
I'll
pupil.
a small pupil with small eye. It is better to separate. You put iris hoop, or you
Iris
can
hook.
yes,
Yes.
Malugin ring is absolutely
Not
no,
possible. Right.
not
VX you
possible.
can put. I
You
have
can use VX, no other ring, only VX or iris hoop.
Iris,
because
iris.
BX is a very thin profile.
Uh-huh.
The diameter is 6.5.
Hmm.
Very small cornea and anterior chamber. Absolutely, Malugin ring is the lowest is 6.5 and 7. 7 millimeter Malugin is we have to struggle in the normal eye in the 7 millimeters. So
Impossible. Virtually
impossible to
impossible.
wear.
You are going to injure the angle.
Yes. So it is better to use those iris hooks.
Iris hook better set, or you can use.
And one more thing in a microphthalmic eye, in a very small, that the case which I was about to show, but due to paucity of time, I could not include in my presentation also. So if you have a very small anterior segment, if the corneal diameter is very small, it's better to go for a scleral incision.
Yeah. Yes,
And
yes.
if you go for a corneal incision, you will find that the irrigation ports are lying inside the tunnel.
So see, if your cornea is a 10 millimeter or 8 millimeters. See, the radius of the cornea is a 4 millimeter. Okay. And now giving you a 4 millimeter is from limbus to center is a 4 millimeter or 4, even 9. Now you put a corneal incision is a 2.5. So you have a just only 1.5 millimeter from the center of the cornea to is a working space. So it is better to you put a scleral incision. It will give
And-
you ample space to emulsify the nucleus. Otherwise, if you consider as a not a diameter, it is considered as a radius of the cornea. Radius 9 millimeter cornea is a 4.5, and you cover the 2 millimeter with the incision, corneal incision, only 2.5 millimeter is rest. So it's better to use scleral incision.
And also it's better if you can use a 2.2 tape in these cases, and then extend the incision if required for
Yes.
putting the lens in.
Okay.
So, Devashish, apart from this CTR, which type of back fixation technique do you like? You prefer Ahmed segment or Sioni ring?
Previously, obviously, I used to use Sioni ring, but after the Ahmed segment or segment CTR has come into the world, definitely it is always easier to put in the CTR separately and then fix the bag with an Ahmed segment. That makes negotiation simpler, because Sioni ring, and suppose you need a double Sioni ring, I have never done it. It becomes difficult. Yes, some others. What do you have to say?
What is your
No,
fixation material, suture material?
Oh, material you were talking about. It was
No. We are talking about the ring. Yes, Ahmed combination of CTR and Ahmed segment is much easier to implant, no, rather than a Sioni ring with either single or double arm, whatever.
But
Yes.
Malugin ring, Malugin modified CTI Sioni ring has been. I've seen it, as you have all seen, but I have
never
been able
used.
to
Yeah.
put my hands on it. I've thought that I will apply a little bit of
Is
heat
it-
to that.
Is
to
it
that
available
kind of
in India?
fixation. I don't think so. Even
No. This is not a. This is made by the FCI only.
It is very expensive. I tried it. I did not.
Did you try?
Sorry.
Did you try the riveting technique with Prolin
Riveting
60?
No, I don't. I'm not. I've done a few Yamane technicals and all that, but I'm not a fan of that. Maybe I will not do too much of that
Why not? On any reason?
because I find that the conjunctiva over
The erosion issue.
erode and it shows like anything.
Erosion issue. Erosion issue.
And
is
it
there.
may show up anytime. Anytime it may get eroded. So I don't think it is. Well,
If you can do it under the pocket, then
Then it is okay.
then it is okay. Then definitely it is okay.
Because
Good
riveting is
idea.
very simple.
Good
The
idea.
technique is
Good
very
idea.
simple.
I have never thought it that it can be done under the pocket and all those videos. I mean, the scleral flap.
You can do it under a pocket.
Yes. Thank you for the idea. I have never thought about
Yeah.
it.
Because I have started recently, but
Very good. Thank you for the idea.
let's see.
It should be fine.
That cautery is now not working in our routine.
But
Really?
Yeah.
Iris is a very.
I have
flimsy
sent
film.
that for repair. Yes.
Iris is such a flimsy structure, and if you use 60 prolines on it, I think it is. I mean, I have never done it. I'll try, and I'll take.
6-0
your
proline,
understanding.
I don't think it will cause any problem because it will hold it in place. It won't cause any buttonhole or kind of thing. And the main problem is you need to take round body needles for iris suturing.
Iris suturing downward needle. Okay.
Because
Cutting
if
needles
you
will not
use a
do.
cutting needle, then it's going
Yes.
to produce bigger holes and it might give way.
Yes.
Are you talking about a fixation of CTS
Dialysis repair.
or dialysis repair? Dialysis repair, yes, definitely. Now we have only can do the either 9-proline or 10. So 9-proline is always better. So we don't have that kind of needle in India with the proline suture, 9-proline suture. This is a main problem. So we need to have a slightly round body bent needle. So we have a straight needle with that 9-proline. So with that, I think we should now C51.
I think we are almost at the end of the session. Thank you all. Thank you all for participating. And
Thank you so much.
yeah,
Thank you so much.
over to you, Sanjay.
Thank you, Dr. Ayan. That was absolutely wonderful and keeping in time. Thank